Hello, everyone. I just want to say a few words about the idea of week 5, in which we'll be reading Spindon's The Enigma of Engineering's Industrial Exemption to Licensure, the Exception That Swallowed a Profession. I think this is a very valuable and interesting essay written about a very specific aspect of engineering and a crucial one if we are going to actually look at engineering as a profession and therefore look at engineering ethics as professional ethics. Really has to do with the fact that there's really, when it comes down to it, no licensing requirement for engineers. This is a complicated matter. Licensing requirements. And the history here that Spindon gives of licensing in engineering in America is a very valuable history lesson and tells you a lot of things about America, about engineering, and about engineering in America. We know that there are professional engineers who get licensed, but the vast majority of engineers have no licensing requirements at all. And really to practice as recognizably as an engineer, I would say doesn't even require an engineering degree. I'm sure I mentioned Steve Wozniak, co-founder of Apple, who considers himself an engineer, but he has no engineering degree. He designs, or at least in his, when he was active, designed computers, and worked as an engineer. So the Spindon idea is a very, very important idea for this class and is a polemic. I mean, it's written from a certain point of view, and that point of view, obviously, is that the lack of any kind of real licensing requirements for engineers is a disaster. Primarily, I would say for engineering, but also for the world. That is, that engineers should be licensed, both for their own good and for the good of the world. That is, I would say, unmistakably, the message of Spindon's argument. And it is polemical in the sense that I don't expect everyone to agree, but I expect everyone to take the thesis seriously enough to understand his reasons for holding it. As always, you're not required, in a philosophy class especially, to agree with anything that we've read. What you are required to do, I think, as a student in the class, is to understand the arguments that support a position, and if you disagree with it, give arguments in response. That is always, and if you agree with it, to say why you agree with it, right? So this is, I would say, a very interesting essay. It is a long essay, and a lot of it is purely historical. Before he gets to, in the latter part of the essay, his arguments, essentially his philosophical arguments, and looking at the counter arguments against licensing. But the history is incredibly valuable. It was valuable to me as a teacher of engineering ethics. It couldn't help but be valuable to you as an engineer to become more cognizant of the history of engineering, the history of its attempts to be recognized as a profession, and the key issue of licensing. Licensing is taken for granted now as something that just goes along with being, let's say, a doctor or a lawyer. It is not something that is taken for granted for engineering. And the challenge here is like, why not? If you're going to be a real profession, how can you not have at least minimal requirements? And, maybe that question is not so simple. Maybe there are safeguards. And that is certainly the counter argument to Spindon. So I would say, despite maybe the dryness on the surface of the Spindon material, that it gets to the heart of what we're doing in this class and raises a bunch of issues that are quite challenging, no matter what side you eventually feel that you fall on the question posed.